our international affairs editor. Hello to you, Armen.
Hi, Will.
Nick framing it there, why this was such a big speech and why we heard so many important messages, and yet this comes after Germany had been accused of sort of a muddled stance on Russia.
Yeah, I think Nick is spot on. This is a 180-degree turn in German policy. As you remember, Olaf Scholz was ridiculed in Ukraine for promising to send helmets to the Ukrainian armed forces. This is a complete change. I think after that decision earlier, about the helmets, in a sense, a lot of people were going to watch Olaf Scholz to see would he rise to this moment in history. And I think he was actually pretty strong both on the big picture and on the detail. So the big picture, he really did acknowledge that this is, you got a sense that he had really taken on board how much of a turning point this is in Europe's history, Europe's security, and indeed the whole world security order that is changing as a result of these absolutely momentous events. So
to that end, he announced more sanctions on Russia and more weapons for Ukraine.
Sanctions on Russia, weapons for Ukraine, which is a big turning point in German policy. More defense spending, as Nick Spicer was saying us, that is definitely a headline. And remember, this is what US presidents, Obama, Trump, plenty of US presidents have been pushing Germany to spend more on defense. He got cheers when he said we need a modern army that can fly, that can sail in its ships, and so forth. He talked about a special defense fund that was ideally going to be enshrined in the German constitution, to cheers. He talked about planes and tanks that were going to be developed with France. So this speech will then, I would think, joyously watched in French government circles as well, because they want to do more things with Germany. They want to create a more autonomous European defense. I think he hit all the buttons with NATO allies here as well. He was obviously trying to balance the various political interests in the German Chancellor, in the German Parliament. Those who want to invest more in gas, those who want more of an emphasis on renewables. That was always going to be a balancing act, but I think he hit as many buttons as he possibly could in this speech. A very powerful performance by Olaf Scholz, to a lot of cheers and applause and ovations in the German parliament there.
Yeah, and those changes come into effect. We could see a lot of changes in Germany. Its energy reliance on Russia possibly ending, more defense spending. What are the consequences for long-term European security here? You mentioned Paris would be watching this speech closely.
Well, I think one big question that still is not totally clear in the detail is, what would happen if the gas was turned off tomorrow? What if the taps were turned off? You remember you and I interviewed a spokesperson for the French foreign ministry yesterday, who told us, yes, there are contingency plans being made with immediate reserves that supposedly will be available, and obviously talks with other countries about liquefied natural gas. LNG was something that Olaf Scholz mentioned several times in this speech, but I think it's still a bit unclear, Will, about how that transition is going to come in the long term, both to alternative energy sources, this diversification, and also the renewables question. How's that going to be addressed? Because obviously, the technology is still evolving on the renewables. It's not as if you can just suddenly, at the push of a button, have all the renewables ready to meet all Europe's energy needs. Just one final very quick point. Olaf Scholz said something which was, I think, very important about financial aid to the most vulnerable households, because he did acknowledge that energy prices are going to go up simply on the basis of the existing war, let alone whatever may happen in the next few weeks.
Indeed. All right. Thank you very much, Armen. Armen, Georgian, France 24's foreign editor. We'll have